how you use that God-given energy that you have. Your choice, positive or negative. So she's been a great influence on my family and all the extended family. I've been through here a lot, and I've been around the state with Burns Hargis, and I know he's been here as well. And I used to like to say when Hargis and I were traveling together that Burns Hargis went to Oklahoma State University. And at OSU, Burns Hargis was an honor student. Yes, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. He was always in trouble. He spent a lot of time in juvenile court his freshman year there. And then I would always say, if Burns was with me, I'd always say, and Burns became a track star at Oklahoma State University. Most people don't know that. He was a hurdler. One day he was warming up for the hurdles, and he backed into the pole vaulter, and he won the broad jump. And so, and I'd always say you had to be there to appreciate it, And then I'd say we all knew that Burns was going to be a good lawyer someday, Bill, because under his yearbook picture at OSU, it said incompetent, irrelevant, and immaterial. So he said, that guy's going to be a lawyer. And that's what lawyers say. And eventually he became a bankruptcy attorney, but he took all of his cases on contingency. So you see what I'm saying? I mean, there's a problem for all partners with him. Recently, the governor appointed me to the higher ed board of regents, and that's a pretty neat deal. But I had to get confirmed by a Republican state senate. So, honest to God, I was a little bit nervous. I mean, I thought they were okay with me because I was the governor's choice, and it's a 9-year appointment, and you have to supervise all 25 colleges and universities in the state of Oklahoma, their classes, their budgets. It's a pretty neat appointment. I mean, not many appointments are for 9 years. I mean, I'm there to be confirmed by a Republican Senate Education Committee, predominantly Republican. And about the time I get up just like this to kind of say what my philosophy is on higher ed, and a little bit nervous about it because they could come after me, and they told me there's 2 or 3 of them that really wanted to, I was going to say give me a piece of their minds, what I'm trying to say here, give me a piece of their mind, not a piece, okay, so about the time I get started, Burns Hargis shows up. This is pretty recent history. He's the president of OSU at that point in time. We were no longer traveling the state together. Burns Hargis comes in and takes over the whole Senate Education Committee hearing and said, I'm here to talk about Mike Turpen. And I thought, uh-oh, because I mean, I traveled the state telling jokes about it. You already heard some of it. He took over the whole thing. He said, I know Mike Turpen better than anybody else in the whole world except for his family, and he's a good man. You ought to confirm him here today. And he actually went on and on. He said, the only bad thing about Turpen being a regent is now he'll be my boss, higher ed regent. And so everybody started laughing, and somebody said, I moved Turpen to be confirmed, about a 15-0 vote. Just that quick. I never got to talk, nor did I really want to in that context. So Burns took care of it. And this Saturday, in 2 days, I'll be sitting courtside with Burns, with my wife and I, with Ann and Burns, and it's been a great friendship. And once again, we've been right here in Cushing. Burns and I were here at the high school. We decided, 7 or 8 years ago, and we had a good time traveling all over the state. Politics. What I loved about politics was getting to travel the state and going to all 77 counties. My slogan was, it's time for Turpen, it's Turpen time. And everybody used to say, that's a stupid slogan. I said, who cares? I won. I'm Attorney General of the state of Oklahoma. You got to have a sense of humor. I used to have people dress up in sandwich board clocks. Think about that. So it's a sandwich board, but you make a clock out of it, and you walk around with a sandwich board clock, and on the face of the clock it said Turpen time. Well, Highway 51, both sides coming into college, high school games all over the state. I had my friends wearing sandwich board clocks that said Turpen time. Well, I get elected Attorney General, and my first press conference was kind of tough because they said, they call you General Turpen. Wasn't that hard to get people to, wear clocks, and essentially humiliate themselves? I said, yes, it was. I said, it's hard to get an adult human being to put on a sandwich board clock and walk around and essentially humiliate themselves. But I said, all those that did, they've become assistant attorney generals. Like Richard Mildred. You guys Richard Mildred's one of my law partners, and his brother was Jack Mildred, and they played some football there at OU. But he wore a clock. And the point is, politics is not a spectator sport. You got to get involved in the process. My uncle said there's 3 things you should never do, though. He said, number 1, Uncle Ralph. He said, number 1, don't ever try to climb a fence that's leaning towards you. And number 2, don't ever try to kiss a girl that's leaning away from you. And number 3, don't ever run for school board, because it's just, think about it, it's just too close to the people and you get in trouble every time. But so that's why I decided to run statewide, so it was kind of fun. Won the Attorney General's race and won the District Attorney's race before that, and then I ran for governor and got beat. But I got to travel the state, and I figured traveling the state, what I learned the most was the whole idea of listen, learn, and lead. And I really mean this sincerely. The great thing about here today, and wherever I went as a candidate in all 77 counties, is I learned that, first of all, personal contact alters opinions. Personal contact alters opinions. Whatever you heard about somebody, once you get to know them, walk a mile in their shoes, you can kind of work things out. You can work through a lot of problems. And what I learned traveling this great state, meetings just like this, I learned that every man, every woman is like a book, is like a volume, if you will simply take the time to read them. That's pretty neat. I mean, that way when you walk into a room, instead of being intimidated by folks and people you don't even know, you kind of embrace the whole idea of getting to read a book and say, what's going on? And you spend enough time at a cafe or a diner in any town in this state, maybe in this country, but I know Oklahoma, you can learn a whole lot by just listening. And I don't mind talking, but the truth is, just listening is why I became a good public servant, because you get to see what's on everybody's mind. So, politics is not a spectator sport. You got to get involved. Another point, politics is the second oldest profession in the whole world, but the results are the same in both. Okay? You see what I'm saying? And you're thinking for the voters, and I'm thinking for the candidate. I mean, for the candidate, I used to like to share the wisdom of Abraham Lincoln. And if Hargis was with me, by the way, I'd say, Burns, do you mind if I quote the last great Republican president? And Burns would go, Reagan or something. I said, no, Abraham Lincoln. He was the last great, it's just a joke, but he was Republican, Abraham Lincoln. And I'd say, well, your party's changed a lot since Abraham Lincoln, And he'd say, so was yours. But the great Lincoln story, Lincoln's in the Lincoln-Douglas debates. And Douglas gets up and says, my opponent here this evening, Abraham Lincoln, talks out of both sides of his mouth. In fact, Abraham Lincoln is two-faced. Lincoln-Douglas debates. Lincoln gets up and says, I leave it to my audience here this evening. If I had two faces, do you think I'd be wearing this one in front of you here today? I mean, he wasn't especially handsome, very unique looking character. But think about that, folks. In the most troubled times in American history, Abraham Lincoln, a sense of humor to keep things in proper perspective. But the other political thing I learned along the way was politics is show business for ugly people. And what I mean is, what do I mean by that? I'm just saying a lot of these politicians, take themselves too darn seriously, and I learned out of all of it, humility matters.